Hi everyone, welcome to ARN-Engineering. Today we're going to learn about fractions. Fractions are generally defined as a numerical quantity that is not a whole number. So in order to understand that, we need to know what a whole number is. So a whole number, an example of a whole number could be 1, 2, 10, etc. Right? These are whole numbers. An example of a fraction could be 1 over 2, could be 3 over 4. These are fractions. Now, whole numbers can be shown in the form of a fraction. For example, number 2, a whole number, number 2, can be shown as 2 over 1, which is a form of a fraction. Today we're going to learn about simple operations using fractions, such as addition, addition and subtraction, and multiplication, and division. Alright, so to begin, I want to show a general form of a fraction. So let's say a over b, and let's start with multiplication, right? Because this is going to be, multiplication is probably the easiest. Okay, and let's say we want to multiply a over b by c over d. Now, in order to do that, we simply multiply the denominator of the fractions together, so b times d, and we write that as the denominator, and do the same for the top part of fractions, so a times c. Let's put some values in here. So let's assume that a is equal to 1, b is equal to 2, c is equal to 3, and d is equal to 4. And these are just examples. So now we can rewrite this as 1 over 2, which is a over b, times c over d, which is 3 over 4. Right? So we'll do the same thing again. 2 times 4, that's 8, and 1 times 3, that's 3. As simple as that. Now let's talk about division. Division of fractions. So let's go back to the general form again. So a over b divided by c over d. What I like doing when I'm dividing two fractions together is to make a bigger fraction. So change this to a form of a bigger fraction. Now, fractions by nature, they are a form of division. When we say a over b, we are basically saying a divided by b. So we can rewrite this as, I will just write it over here, we can rewrite this as A over B. Now that's a division, so we do a larger fraction, larger division, divided by C over D. Now, a trick that I do that makes this easier, and probably a lot of other people do as well, at times the furthest numbers together, and I put that on the top, right? So A times D, and I put that here, divided by. Then for the bottom part, I times the numbers that are closer to each other, so B times C. And there we go. Now we have a simple multiplication between two numbers and a division. That's a lot easier to solve than something like this. So let's put the same numbers back on again. So we can say 1 over 2 divided by 3 over 4, right? Now let's do this this operation. What we can say is 1 over 2 over 3 over 4. Now that's the same thing. These are identical. Now we do this trick. We say we times 1 by 4 and put it on top. So that just becomes 4. And 2 times 3, and we put it at the bottom. 2 times 3 is 6. And there we go. We can just further simplify this. 4 divided by 2 is 2, and 6 divided by 2 is 3. And that's our answer. Right? So we've covered multiplication and division so far. Now let's look at addition and subtraction. So let's go back to the general form of fractions. So we just show them as A over B. Let's look at addition. Addition and subtraction, they are really not different. So let's add A over B to C over D. So how would we do this? Now, the way I do this is, first thing I do is I times the bottom part of the fractions together. So B times D, and I basically just write it at the denominator of the answer. Then what I do is I grab this and divide it by the first fraction's denominator. So BD divided by B. Let me do it here so it makes it easier. So BD divided by B. Right? B and B will cancel out. So all we're going to get is D. Then what I do is I times this by the top part. So DA. Okay. We have a plus sign, so we put the plus sign here. Then we do the same thing for this fraction. We say BD divided by D this time. So BD divided by D. D and D will cancel out, and we're going to get B. Then we times B by C. BC. And that's it. That's how we can do an addition. Okay. So let's put the numbers back on again. So we can rewrite this as 1 over 2 plus 3 over 4. Okay, so we go through the same process again. We times these two together first. 2 times 4, 8. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 4 times 1 is 4. Write 4 up there. 8 divided by 4 is 2. And 2 times 3 is 6. And we have a plus sign here, so plus 6. 4 plus 6 is 10, divided by 8. We can further simplify this. 10 divided by 2 is 5. 8 divided by 2 is 4. And that's our answer. Now, we can quickly check this by saying, by assuming, or by writing these in a different format. We can say 1 divided by 2 is basically a half, right? And 3 divided by 4 is basically 0.75, right? So what does half mean? Half is 2 quarters. Half is 2 quarters. 0.75 is 3 quarters, right? So altogether we have 5 quarters. So we have 2 quarters here, and then we're adding this. With 3 quarters we have 5 quarters, right? Now let's go back to our fraction mode. What's a quarter in a fraction mode? It's basically 1 over 4. So all we're writing here is 5 times 1 over 4. Now, do you remember multiplication? 5 is basically 5 over 1. So we're saying 5 over 1 times 1 over 4. Multiplication was basically as simple as timesing the bottom and the top parts of the fraction together. So 4 times 1 is 4, 5 times 1 is 5. And that's same as what we got here. So this is a good way of checking your operations. Subtraction is essentially the same thing, same process. Subtraction. So A over B minus C over D, right? We do the exact same thing. We times the bottom numbers together, so B times D, so that's BD, and then BD divided by B is D times A, that's AD. Now we just put a minus sign here, and we do the same thing for this fraction. BD divided by D is B times C gives us BC, right? So as you can see, it's exactly the same thing. So let's put the numbers back on again. That's 1 over 2 minus 3 over 4. Now, just by looking at this, we know that this number is smaller than this number, so we are subtracting a bigger number from a smaller number. So we are expecting a negative value. We already know that. But let's go through the process. 2 times 4 is 8. 8 divided by 2 is 4 times 1 is 4 minus 8 divided by 4 is 2. 2 times 3 is 6, right? So 4 minus 6 is minus 2 divided by 8. That gives us minus 1 over 4. And all I did was divided both sides by 2. And that gave me minus a quarter. And again, if you go back, we can see it makes sense. See, that's a half, and that's a 3/4, right? So we're saying 2 quarters minus 3 quarters. We're going to be left with a minus of a quarter, which is minus 1 over 4. And that was it for simple operation of fractions. Thank you very much for watching, and if you like this video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel, which will really help. Thank you.